to be talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series that is released on Disney Plus. Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes are trying to cope with life after the Thanos snap. Sam Wilson's trying to go back to his home and try to fix things at his place because he was blipped out of existence, and so was Bucky. But Bucky is more on the side of trying to deal with his trauma and his past beings as being the Winter Soldier, and while also trying to be, government agents and trying to stop this world terrorist organization, trying to make things go back to the way it was when the blip was a thing. So since this is a TV series and this show is completely out now, we're just going to get into spoilers. It's just, I find it easier to do it this way. So we start out this series with Sam Wilson doing a press conference about Captain America's shield and how it's a symbol and how no one is like Steve Rogers, which lends me to believe, is Steve Rogers dead or is he just hiding somewhere? Because it's really never explained after Endgame what happened to Steve Rogers. They just know that he's not around anymore, so either he could be retired or he could be dead. We don't know. But nevertheless, Sam is talking about the shield and its symbolism, and they are going to retire the shield along with all of Cap's things and preserve it in a museum. Now, this part is kind of interesting because Cap gave Sam Wilson the shield. I find it kind of weird that Sam Wilson would be like, I'm just gonna preserve it because it doesn't technically belong to me. And it's like, no, he chose you for a reason, dude. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't take the moniker of the Captain America. And while I'm not 100% sold on the idea of that, what I'm really not sold on is the whole main plot that strings through along these 6 episodes of the series. We have a organization that, as I said before, wants to revert things back to what it was when the blip happened and half population was gone. They feel like that they were more united and they feel like that they were better in control of everything. And yeah, I guess it's easier to control a society that's half gone, but that's just not logically a good thing to do. And the sad part about this is that this is like very much how I talked with somebody, how I'm not a fan of how this is just a weak villain and it's just government agency stuff and it's like spy stuff and they're all super soldiers, when not too long ago we're facing Thanos with the Infinity Stones, that is the most powerful things to have ever been created. And then we move to WandaVision with, again, an all-powerful spellcaster that could have legitimately taken down Thanos, to just a terrorist organization with a bunch of super soldiers. Now, I get threats kind of vary in levels. Like, I mean, Captain America Winter Soldier was just a government agency looking to take over and murder a bunch of people. That was be Hydra. But I mean, that's way early on in the series. We're so past that in the MCU that it's just reverting back to those things does feel like a big downgrade in its level of threat. And while I'll say the main villain did not really do anything for me, and the organization did not do anything for me, and the whole subplot of all of that is, actually, it's not even a subplot, it's the main plot. So if you're going into this series thinking that, like, that's not going to be a thing that you need to worry about because all these, even though the villain is not as strong, at least there's other things to worry about, it's no, like, that is what strings the series of events together. And while I'll say there's that's just a big underwhelming aspect of the series, another really big thing that I was not a fan of was how little they used Bucky Barnes. They really underutilized Bucky Barnes in this. I think the whole MCU, actually, outside of the Winter Soldier, has really never done Bucky Barnes justice, outside of maybe Winter Soldier and Civil War. But I mean, he's the main component in Winter Soldier, and he's the main component in Civil War. Like, without him, like, there's not a lot there. But also, like, he's a super soldier that was Cap's friend, that he was tortured by Hydra and used as a weapon, which then he started fighting with Steve, and Steve is the only guy that he knew that was still alive, and now nobody he knows is alive anymore, and it's just Sam Wilson, which is just a friend of Steve's. Like, there's so much stuff you could do with Bucky Barnes. It's just, I find it odd that they didn't go more with it. And along with Bucky Barnes with Sam Wilson, I didn't care about anything that he was doing that didn't involve him with the shield and with the Falcon outfit on. Like, I don't care that his family is losing the family boat. I mean, all the scenes with everybody talking and the dialogue is pretty good. Like, there's not really much of things to complain about other than, like, this whole series is just not very action packed, and it's like it can get repetitive. And while there are some great conversations between people like Sam and the main villain of the terrorist group, or Bucky and Sam, and then there's, this therapist, and, there's a lot of good scenes with a lot of good conversations in it. But if that's all you're bringing me in a superhero TV series, I think that you approached it wrong. One of the other highlights in this show, though, I will give with characters is Zemo. I was not a big fan of Zemo in Civil War. I think Civil War, when you watch it a bunch, it kind of loses value each time. You kind of see the cracks in the movie a lot. It does give you a lot of good stuff, but there is also a contrast of things in that movie that just, when you look at the grand scheme of the MCU, it falls apart kind of quickly. But Zemo for sure is just stealing every scene that he's in. This guy's a great actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff, and he's really a kick-ass actor. But he's, it's Zemo, and while he does his stuff, you know that he's gonna double cross somebody and he's gonna escape. And what I find interesting is that he's held up in a jail, and they call him one of the most dangerous people on Earth. He's got no powers. He's just a guy. I don't know how that can make you one of the most dangerous people in the world. Just my opinion. One of the characters that's also in this show that I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I was, because I did not watch this show week to week. I watched all the episodes, 5 episodes leading up to the finale the week before, and then I watched the finale a day or two later. So John Walker being on the internet is memed and everything like that. I was preparing myself to hate the guy and just kind of think he's just a goof. But surprisingly, I was like, I wanted more. They really had an interesting concept with John Walker as a guy that kind of fits the mold as far as the look of Steve Rogers, and that he is a soldier, but he's not the man that Steve Rogers was. This guy is very corrupt. He relies heavily on the actual in battlefield moments of like taking hostages down sort of deal, rather than Steve being like looking at the human side of everything, while also knowing that there may be times to go in for the kill, so to speak. And I think they really dropped the ball with it. I really think that John Walker could have been a way more compelling character than he was, because he starts out as a guy that you're like, oh, I get it. Like, this guy has 3 medals of honor or whatever, and he seems like a good spokesperson. But then you start to see the cracks in him, and then he ends up in my favorite episode of the whole series is episode 4, where he ends up going over the edge and killing somebody because they end up killing his partner. And it's so glossed over at the end of the show, though, too. I'm kind of questioning myself as to be like, did they not think of this all the way through? Like, wouldn't the government keep tabs on you? Because in that episode, Zemo and them find the main girl and chase her down, and then she's carrying around super soldier serum, and he ends up breaking all of the serum except for one, and then John Walker finds it, and then we find out through a battle scene because he throws the shield into a wall that creates this huge crater, and then he faces a guy and he takes a pipe and he bends it, and then you're like, oh, he actually took it. He doesn't understand that what made Steve Rogers was not the serum, it was the kind of guy he was. And then seeing him kind of become a worse version of Captain America was interesting to see, but there wasn't enough for me. I will say also, it was nice to see Sharon Carter. I mean, she's a fine actress, and she didn't really serve the story as much as I thought she was going to. She does some stuff. She's kind of in and out of there a lot of the time, so it's not the biggest plot point in the world up until you find out that she becomes a power broker that everybody knew she was, and then you find out the post-credit scene of the show that she gets her job back with the government, and then, she's still working with the people as the power broker as well. So that might be an interesting concept later down the road with her, but outside of that, I don't think she was like a big factor in the show, but she was just a fine addition. And I have to say that that's kind of the overall theme of the show, is that it's fine. Like, it's not overly terrible, and it's not like over the moon good. It's a lot of average stuff in there, that with a sprinkle of some greatness that could have been better. For example, there's a scene in Wakanda where we find out that Bucky was training with somebody to get rid of the words that would trigger him to become the Winter Soldier, and it's this amazing scene where it's one of the warriors in Wakanda that reads off the list of words, and he's fighting back tears, and he's like getting flashbacks of himself as the Winter Soldier, and he's trying really hard to fight it, and that was fantastic. But as I said before, they didn't capitalize on everything with that, because while you get stuff like that, it's very far and few in between. And the last thing I'll end this on is that the show's action that they try to use is pretty subpar at times. There's some good fights in there. Sharon Carter fighting off a bunch of guys in the cargo ship area was a neat fight sequence for, what it was, but everything else was kind of like what we all hate to see in action movies nowadays, which is quick cut, shaky cam editing, and I'm surprised they still did it here. It was a problem in Winter Soldier when everybody was saying that it was cool. The choreography was cool, just the camera work didn't show any of that, which made it worse than what it was. They need to start leaning into this stuff where they're taking long takes and letting the actors actually perform these stunts, and so we can see the stunts. I hate the idea of just having people like, well, we're going to shoot up close, so we're, kind of minimizing any mistakes. No, it's like you're paying the guy to do what he's supposed to be paid to do. Like, he signed up for the role as Bucky Barnes, Sam Wilson, all these guys. Like, if you sign them up for that and they signed the contract for it, like, you can tell them, like, hey, I need you to learn this pretty well. Like, we need you to kind of do a better job. And while I don't think this show is very terrible, I also don't think in the grand scheme of the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe, it doesn't feel like that this is going to be a major component of the next phase. I felt with WandaVision, it was a major component of the timeline. You're going to see a bunch of stuff from that show that's probably going to come back into the next series or the next movie that she's in. With this just felt like a reason to be like, well, we kind of need filler, and maybe we need to figure out this Captain America thing before we actually make a movie with him, or if we add him into an Avengers movie of some sort. This just felt like it was kind of like, it was there. Actually, there's one more thing I missed with this show. It's Isaiah, actually, in the show. He is a super soldier, a black super soldier that was experimented on back in the day when Steve Rogers was around. And Sam Wilson has very good conversations with him. These guys acted the hell out of these scenes. The dialogue was great. And the resolution that they have with him, where Sam Wilson takes him to a museum after donning the Captain America moniker, finally, he takes him to a museum, and then he shows him a statue of himself, showing him that no one will forget what happened with you, and they will thank you for your service and everything. That stuff was also a very good touch in the show. I'm going to give Falcon and the Winter Soldier 3 stars. Like I said, it's not going to be, the best series that they're probably going to make. They'll probably make way better shows than this. It is probably more filler than it probably thought going in. But, I also didn't think it was going to be great going in either. I was almost going to skip this series and just not even watch it as a whole. But, a lot of people liked a lot of different things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A lot of people will say that Infinity War and Endgame are the top 2 movies, but then you kind of get a lot of people being like, well, I think this movie is better than this movie. So this whole franchise has really great balance of things that people can enjoy. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.